Welcome back to Cosmic Comics. Let's take a quick look at my favorite comic series of 2020, starting with number 5. I may decide I'm not happy with this choice over the long run, but this book did one thing I both respect and hate it for. It made me feel uncomfortable. In the opening pages, the president is assassinated, and before the vice president can be sworn in, she has to worry about false flag patriots within the government who are still intent on shutting down the current administration. The only thing that could have made this book hit harder is if it had been on the shelves the day after the election. Instead, it came out 2 weeks later. But wow, it's been a while since I held a piece of art in my hand and was reminded how dangerous art can be. That's why The Recount by Scout Comics is my 5th favorite series of 2020. Moving on to number 4. Maybe you know who Rick Remender is, maybe you don't. If you don't, I'm jealous because you have so much great reading ahead of you. In 2019, Rick started up his own company, Giant Generator, where he still publishes through Image. Rick had some great Marvel runs: Uncanny Avengers, All New Captain America, and Uncanny X-Force. The writing for all of these runs is recognized as top-notch, so I'm sure many people were excited to see Rick break away from Marvel and start putting his own ideas to paper. When I started reading comics again about 6 years ago, Rick's work was some of the stuff I was drawn to. The artists he worked with, including Matteo Scalera and Wes Craig, all seem to really mesh with his style of storytelling. And although I don't love everything Rick does, I like almost all of it. Black Science is a fantastic read if you haven't checked it out, and one of my favorite series of the last decade. Remender's ongoing series, Deadly Class, continues to meander and then re-engage me with the lead character Marcus's consistently dark nihilism as he adjusts to life at King's Dominion. The book is at its best when Marcus is the most open and raw, and in turn, Remender is as well. The more Rick opens up on the page through his characters, the more vulnerable his writing becomes, the more it resonates, and sometimes his work is truly profound, and other times just leaves me feeling empty inside. But one book of his has remained a consistent favorite for several years now. I feel it doesn't get the love that Death or Glory, Deadly Class, or Seven for Eternity gets, but I'll be damned if I don't think that Low is the best title out of all of them. In the year 2020, Stell Kane's message of hope in a world that's falling apart, in a world where she believes the only way humanity can move forward is if somebody continues to believe in it and never gives up hope. At the comic's heart is a message that one person harnessing hope can change the world. The final issue was supposed to come out this month, but has since been pushed up to February. Low by Giant Generator and published by Image is my 4th favorite series of 2020. Next is a longtime favorite. 300 plus issues, and Spawn is still pulling me in. I've really only talked about Marvel on this channel. What you guys don't know is when it comes to Spawn, I've read everything. All of it. Every guest appearance, every side character, every alternate timeline, all of it. I love and hate Spawn. My biggest beef with Spawn right now is that for the last 3 years, longtime letterer Tom Orzechowski has been misspelling words and or leaving letters out of words at a rate of about 50% of the issues. This has happened so much that I've considered going back through the issues to see if it spells out a secret message or some other such silliness. If anybody out there has Todd McFarlane's ear, I would love to be his proofreader. Although I might not be the best person for that position because I'd start asking questions about the plethora of plot holes that exist across the continuity of the series. But in all fairness, as sloppy as things are a-changin'. They feel so much cleaner than they used to be. For more than 15 years, we watched Al Simmons struggle, learning tiny bits about him and the Spawn suit, and hell and heaven and everything else that came up along the way. And it seemed like that's how the comic was going to go on forever. But leading up to, and especially after issue 300, everything isn't coming together, but some things are coming together, and that's exciting. This is a series that's killed off its main character for several years, and then brought him back, and then killed off his wife, and then he went to hell to save her soul. And now, with heaven and hell cut off from the real world, Al, one of many Spawns, is making his move step by step to find out who gave the order to kill his wife and to get his revenge. In the process, Todd McFarlane has brought back characters from across the series history and started to tie together all sorts of things that by this point readers thought was never going to be brought back into the story. And now it has, and that makes me happy. And let's not forget that the artwork in Spawn has stayed phenomenal and at the top of the comics game for the entirety of its run, and still only cost $2.99, less than any monthly DC or Marvel comic, and you won't have to worry about advertisements breaking up the flow of your comic as you read it. All of that combined is why Spawn, published by Image Comics, is my third favorite comic this year. If you ever decide you want to read it from the beginning, the first 25 to 50 issues can be a bit of a slog from time to time, but after that, the series just keeps getting better and better. Riding in high on the list next is a newcomer. New publisher this year, Artists, Writers, and Artisans, or AWA Studios, or simply AWA, has come out on the scene with a number of great books. Old Haunts, Grendel, Kentucky, and Red Border have all been enjoyable reads. Although I haven't necessarily fallen in love with everything they've published, I find there's more out there by them that I like than I don't. Most of the series published by AWA so far have been short runs, typically between 4 to 6 issues, and then it's done. Although now we are beginning to see the emergence of some properties that are continuations of previous stories, such as The Resistance moving into Moths, or new stories set in the same universe, such as Year Zero's Volume 1 and 2. If you haven't read anything by AWA, take a look at their current title list or collected trades and see if anything looks interesting. If you're willing to wait until next year, you can pick up a trade of my favorite series by them over the last year, and the final issue is due out at the end of this month. I love the writing, I love the art, I love the direction of the story. I love that the main character is a nobody mom whose teen daughter has gotten into some shit, and mama does what she needs to protect her little girl. Throughout the series, the page layouts feel fresh and show some real innovation that struck me as novel. Writer Krista Faust and artist Mike Diodato have me rooting for one totally awesome Bad Mother every step of the way. That's why Bad Mother by AWA Studios is my second favorite series of 2020. Now it's time for my top pick of the year. Prior to this year, I had never read anything by Uncivilized Comics. I had never heard of Uncivilized Comics, but for some reason a comic about ginseng caught my eye. I knew that Wisconsin was some sort of ginseng mecca from the time I spent living in the Iron Range, but I didn't really know anything else about it. Writer and artist Craig Thompson's story about ginseng and its history within the United States and foreign trade and his own family and work ethic and what it brought into his life and how his brother still works in the ginseng trade to this day, and what you think is going to be a simple, cute little comic pulls you in and ends up being so much more. Craig does a great job of talking about bigger issues and then tying things back to his family and personal story. I'll be the first to admit that I'm usually put off by any kind of true story, especially in comics, but this feels more like a deeply personal ethnography. And let's give Uncivilized Comics their due. These are the most beautiful, high-quality comics I have ever had the pleasure to purchase. These comics are done in a heavy paper, and the same is true of the pages inside. And starting with issue 2, at least I think it starts with issue 2, because my copy of issue number 1 didn't come like this. But anyway, starting with issue 2, it has these sexy red staples on the binders, which match up with the color scheme of the art inside. It's these little details like this that really push this comic into the lead spot. Its art style is one that you would never see at DC or Marvel, but the art style fits the story perfectly. To me, it's beautiful and relaxing. It doesn't need to be any more complex than it is, and if it were, it might begin to take away from the story. This comic series and these comic books have brought me more joy than any other series this year. When was the last time you felt that while reading a comic? Joy. And that is the reason why Ginseng Roots by Uncivilized Comics is my number 1 favorite comic series of 2020. I am always looking for more great comics to read. Drop me a comment down below letting me know what your favorite comic series of 2020 were. Hopefully, my suggestions and the suggestions of others below will inspire some of you to go out and buy and read some new comics that you might not have ever have otherwise gotten into. Thanks for watching Cosmic Comics. I'm out.